So we're looking at the breakdown here of the numbers and how it is that Donald Trump won. I'm going to turn to our panel here. We keep talking about it, but that anger figure, there's the projection. And of course, as you heard Anthony and DeMarco say in their discussion, talking about the fact that second place here is still very, very early, too close to call at this point. But the anger is something that clearly jumps out at you when you look at the state of Nevada, because when you compare what that figure was in other states, it's significantly higher. 58% of Nevada Republican voters said they were angry about the way the federal government is working. That number in South Carolina, just for point of comparison, was 40%. New Hampshire, that number was 39%. And in Iowa, that number was 42%. With that in mind, going forward here, it seems as though, Donald Trump is the unstoppable figure, because this is not a trend that we have just seen isolated to one or two states. Hogan.
Right. I'll give you Iowa, for example. I just looked up the numbers. 121,000 voted in 2012. This year, 180,000 voted. It was a 60,000 vote increase. John mentioned earlier, we talked about Donald Trump not having the turnout apparatus. We had problems going on caucus day. They showed up, but they didn't know what to do. Still, the Donald Trump people told me they thought 38,000 votes would let them win handedly in Iowa. They got 45,000 votes and still came in second. But I mean, think about the increase of where it was last year. Let's go to South Carolina for a moment. Around 700,000 people voted, 600 the year before. So again, about a 60, 70, 80,000 person increase. But here's another number. 59,000 folks this time, 2016, voted absentee. In 2012, that number was 27,000. It more than doubled from this cycle to last. And the reason, I believe, is anger. The anger you just mentioned that was so high in Nevada. And we heard in Nevada, more people now have registered to vote than have this cycle than have voted in the last caucus in Nevada. So it is very obvious. The anger is driving a lot of these folks. They say so in the exit polling for sure, but more so, you're getting so many more people involved in the process, and that's why Donald Trump is doing so well.
All right, I want to go around and ask you, starting with you, Caitlin, what do you think this win means for Donald Trump?
Well, I think two things. One, obviously it's his third consecutive win, which is a big deal. I think it really primes him well to head into those SEC March 1st states. I think he is well positioned to really sweep across the board, especially if Cruz places behind Rubio here. I think that could foreshadow things to come. Also, I think we're going to start to hear him talk a little bit about what you just said. I'm bringing all these new people into the party or into the process. This is record turnout. These wins are decisive. There's no question about them. I think those are two messages we're going to continue to hear.
Absolutely right. One more thing. The discrepancy over double ballots and votes and things like that, and they don't affect Donald Trump because he's winning by such landslides, it's irrelevant. The fight and the backbiting will be over second and third place, and Donald Trump will look above it all. He'll look presidential as he moves on through the process.
Leslie, what do you think this win tonight means for Donald Trump?
I think that's the first time I heard it say Donald Trump look presidential.
That's right.
In the same, that's kind of shocking. I think this again points to the fact that the economic disparity message that Donald Trump has resonates. You were talking about in Nevada, and I just was looking this up. It has the second highest foreclosure rate. It's gone down since 2011, but it's a state following Florida, which is going to be another interesting conversation, where you have a lot of individuals frustrated with the government, frustrated with the slow rate of economic growth. There is a bit of an immigration problem there too. So, and you have a cash economy because of the type of industry it is in that area. It's just the perfect situation, a perfect incubator for these types of messages. And I think as we look at, we should map the economic recovery of some of these areas with the ability of Donald Trump to succeed. I think in South Carolina, which is having a robust growth, it wasn't as vast as it is like you're seeing here.
John, what about you? Your thoughts on what this victory in Nevada means for Donald Trump?
Well, I think it means that if anybody's got opposition research in the Republican Party that they haven't dumped on Donald Trump, we're going to see it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look, I think it's what we've all been talking about here, which is the odds of Donald Trump losing the Republican nomination at this point are minuscule, tiny. I want to try to find like a Trumpian word for it. But I also think just getting back to the point really quickly there about the anger of voters about the government in Nevada, I do think it's important to remember that when you're talking about a Western state, that's almost part of the culture in a lot of the Western states of hating the federal government. You've got land use issues and things like that are a little bit different there.
Yes.
And it may be that in any election you'd see a higher rate of that among voters in the West than you would, say, in South Carolina or even Iowa.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me ask you this. I'm going to go around and get people's thoughts on this. In the past, if someone won New Hampshire, South Carolina, and Nevada, you'd see the party rallying around that candidate. We're not necessarily seeing that or going to see it at this point. At least some people don't think so. I mean, Caitlin, what do you think about that? It's a different time we're at.
All of these other candidates will have to defy history themselves if they want to be the nominee, if each person wants to be the nominee. These candidates are still in this denial phase. They think that each person in this race has thought that he or she could win. I think that feeling is still there. I don't see that going away anytime soon despite these wins. I feel like that's going to continue.
I'll say this. Look, Mike Huckabee in 2008, when he finished second to McCain by 3 points in the state of South Carolina, it snowed. They had Fred Thompson in there. I told you there are various reasons he didn't win that state. People called on him to get out of the race. Okay, he ended up ultimately finishing second to the nomination of John McCain. Ted Cruz didn't win a single county in the state of South Carolina. No one said a word about him getting out. Santorum, 2012, same issue. People kept telling him to get out. Then he sweeps 4 states in Colorado, Minnesota, Missouri, Oklahoma. Then he wins the South, Mississippi, and Alabama. But the call. Just having been on these campaigns, I'll say this. It is very frustrating for a campaign. You didn't tell us when to get in the campaign, so don't tell me when to get out of it. And if you look at 2012, I think a lot of folks did the Santorum math and thought, what we'll do is we'll have a front runner like, they probably thought Jeb, but they thought, well, a front runner like Romney, everyone will bounce off of him and not be able to get any traction. So we'll have Bachmann rise and fall, Herman Cain rise and fall, Pawlenty get out before or right after the straw poll, for heaven's sakes. And then all of a sudden I'll be the last man standing. I think John alluded to that earlier, and I think a lot of candidates thought that's what's going to happen. A lot of candidates, I think, also feel like they're going to take the Huckabee route of, oh, whatever happens, I'll get a good gig on Fox or some CBS or some show I'll get. People don't realize sometimes you don't come out of this looking like Shinola, okay? You come out looking like the other, and that's the problem. But I think a lot of folks have done the calculus, and because of the proportional states, because of the super PACs, they'll be in this a long time, and they think when a collapse happens, they'll be the only one left standing.
Let's talk about the super PACs, Leslie. I mean, are we, John was joking about this, like if anyone's got any Oppo research, now's the time. But I mean, are we going to see the heavy fire now? I mean, are we going to see some kind of blitz here on the part of these super PACs as they try to take down Donald Trump?
That's really a great question. I think we're seeing a little bit of that money with Club for Growth coming out. There were some calls, and some of these donors were asking, I would say some of the Bush donors particularly because of the animosity between those two, is it time to look at really mounting a more serious campaign to expose that he is or is not somebody that should be the head of the Republican Party? So it is a serious conversation among many money folks. And I think it's just a matter of time whether they do this. Are they going to wait and slowly let this trickle out, or are they going to go full force? I think they're seeing now more than ever it's time. If they want to take that approach, they're going to have to do it.
Yeah, because John, on that point, I mean, we're a week less than now till Super Tuesday. Even if these super PACs decide to go in, is there really enough time to change? Because perception is reality, right, in politics, and certainly the momentum seems to be with Donald Trump.
I mean, I think the problem that Republicans, the establishment Republicans have had, any sort of brand of Republican that's not Donald Trump has had, is that there has not been a message against him that has worked. and they certainly haven't made an effort to make one message against him work. And it's not clear to me what opposition research, what thing that could be dug up that would deter Donald Trump supporters rather than making them dig in even harder for him. I was kind of joking about that, and maybe we'll see something, but I think it's hard to tell what the message against Trump that works is. And frankly, every time one of these candidates goes up against him, or anybody else goes up against him, they get chopped down to size pretty quickly. We were talking about this in earlier segments. That's why none of them want to fight him. They all want to fight each other for second place or third place. Or thank goodness we're not trying to figure out who won fourth place and got the real win tonight.
Right.
No, but I think there's an important part there. I don't think this is going to be opposition research that dissuades Trump voters. This is going to be research that coalesces the rest of them to say he cannot be the general market candidate. And win and be the head of the new Republican Party for these reasons. And so I don't think his supporters are going anywhere. They're just ardent, very excited, and they continue to show up. It's going to be the rest of the base. What do they do? And the undecideds, really.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, though. Really, when you talk about consolidating, we haven't seen even the candidates themselves train their fire in any kind of unified fashion against Donald Trump. We were talking about that earlier in the night. I mean, you have Marco Rubio piling on when it comes to attacking Ted Cruz, and we talked about even Ben Carson kind of reinforcing something that the frontrunner said about Ted Cruz, that he's dishonest, that he's a liar. Strategically, it would seem you might want to get the front runner as your target, but that doesn't seem to be happening at all. Hogan, let me ask you about that, though. The notion of durability here. Leslie brought it up, that Trump's voters are not going anywhere. And as we saw in one of the figures that I saw, I think it was something like 76% of the voters in Nevada tonight said that they made up their minds, not in the last few days, but they pretty much had their minds made up going into this. And now we see, of course, Donald Trump, the projected winner here. Is there really much room for minds to be changed at this point, or do you think those voters that are with him now are with him till the end?
I think they're with him. Some of the ones that are staunch are with him to the end. I mean, I think the voters' minds that could be changed are the rest of them that he could potentially bring on to himself. The question Leslie brought up, she's smart to bring this up, is we don't know if those folks are going to coalesce behind him or if they're going to coalesce to be against him. The conventional wisdom would be a lot of these folks, Donald Trump has insulted their candidate, so you would think that they would come out against him to some point, some degree. But I'm not sure, people want to win and they want to be with a winner, okay? And talk about early voting in 2008, I was a comms director for Elizabeth Dole. She got swept up in the Obama wave, lost to Kay Hagan by 9 points. 2 weeks prior, we dumped a lot of negative onto Kay Hagan, a lot of negative ads. The problem was we didn't realize we'd already lost because of early voting. And so these folks have gone out, they know who they want to vote for, they've already voted for him, and they stick with him, and they continue to vote like they are, and they see these huge numbers, and he's winning by 20 points, 10 points, 11 points, and they say, we want a winner. Again, I'm not exactly sure how you shift the narrative, and if Club for Growth comes out, who cares? Okay, they don't know. No voter knows who Club for Growth is. They don't care.
Yeah, and I don't think advertising makes much of an impact anyway. I mean, Donald Trump, some of his most, I would say, creative or impactful videos have been on Instagram. I just think that by the time you get
big on social media,
right, big on social media, and I think by the time you get to a lot of these states, the perception is already created. And so you do have these voters who have not been paying attention as long as we have, especially in these states, to come, and they want to be part of a winning campaign. And if they see the momentum is there.
Right, and it just showed the numbers had Rubio and Cruz, and Rubio was second with 25, Cruz with 20. And again, Cruz, one of his arguments is, I'm the only one who has beaten and can beat Donald Trump. Okay, but you're also the only, you can't even beat Marco Rubio. So if you can't beat Marco Rubio, who can't win a state, then how are you going to beat Donald Trump?
Well, it's 4% of the vote. I mean,
I know it's still early. I'm just pointing out if that holds and he finishes third,
right.
the argument becomes very difficult.
Right, and Ted Cruz is not the kind of person that will give up a campaign for the greater good, right? I mean, for the greater good of the party. The greater good is. And so it's going to be at least a three-man race.
Yeah.
for a long time now. I do think that if it were a two-man race, you could have a lot of what everybody was talking about, this anti-Trump sentiment, and I do think that could be powerful. It's just, again, when do you get there?
All right.
But even
Go ahead, John.
Even then, I was just going to say, even then, I mean, if you look at Trump and say he gets 35% of the vote, and as you know, Rubio will point out and say there's a ceiling, and everybody else has 65%. Well, if Trump wins 25% of that remaining 65%, you know, he wins the nomination. If you you know, if you look at the delegate lead he's amassing right now, he could get into a one-on-one with somebody else and lose it the rest of the way by a little bit and still win the nomination.